What is going on, everyone? DSP here. And yet again, a fun year of gaming has come to a close. It is now early 2025, and it is time for us together to reminisce about the best of what we did together last year. So, tonight, live on my channels, it is time to do the top 20 best playthroughs of 2024 countdown. Now, I must emphasize some things because already I can tell you all, last night I did the top 20 most disappointing playthroughs of 2024, and people got confused. They were very upset with me. Why? Because there were some games in there that are good games, and people were like, how dare you put this game in your countdown of the worst games? And I'm looking around, I'm reading the title of the video, I'm replaying the intro to the video, I'm listening to, everything. I didn't say it was the worst games countdown. I said it was the most disappointing game playthroughs of the year. You could have a great game that ends up being a disappointing playthrough for a reason, And that was the truth, is that many of the entries in that countdown last night were good games that were in there for a particular reason. Tonight, we're doing the best playthroughs of 2024. Will any of the games in this countdown be terrible? No. Will any of the games in this countdown be Game of the Year style contenders? Yes. However, there may be some games in here that you'll be shocked at. Wait, what? Why would you say that that's one of the best? I don't think that was one of the best games of the year, because this is not the best games of the year. You understand? You have to listen. People get confused when they just assume that everyone's just doing the best and worst of the year. I've never done that. I've literally never once in my 16 years as a YouTuber said, it's the best and worst of the year, everybody. Never. Instead, I do something a little different. I think that it's fun, and it keeps it fresh and keeps me being an individual and doing it a little bit, off of the same kind of crap that everybody else does. All right? Okay, so the 20 games we're about to mention resulted in really great playthroughs on the internet. And in reality, I feel like this is probably 20 of the best things that I did in the last year. And by no means are these, like, for example, the only things I did in the last year. There's tons, but these are the 20 things that I think are notable. And maybe in 2024, you didn't have a chance to watch a lot of my content, and now you're just playing catch up. These would be some of the playthroughs I would absolutely recommend that you take a look at if you want to see the best of the best and have a good time, okay? By the way, shout out to Hiseo, who has just gifted 5 memberships to the community here on DSP Gaming to get the support rolling tonight. So thank you, Hiseo. I appreciate that very much. Let's get you up on the leaderboard. And with that, we add 15 bucks of support to the stream. Thanks for getting us rolling here tonight, Hiseo. All righty. All right, guys. Without further ado, I think it's time to start, don't you? All right, ladies and gentlemen, the top 20 best playthroughs of 2024 here on DSP Gaming. Let's start. All right, folks. In the number 20 spot, already we're going to have controversy and shock, so prepare your butts. The number 20 best playthrough that I did in 2024 is WWE Champions Time, brother. We pulled for Hogan's. We played a mobile game live on stream, and I spent money on a mobile game live in front of an audience of hundreds of people live and thousands of people on demand. And the world was shocked and changed forever, brother. So, it is number 20 on the list, and there's a good reason. Look, can we be honest? WWE Champions is not actually a very great game. It's a mobile game that ties in with WWE. So if you like pro wrestling, you probably like this, okay? If you're interested in mobile gaming, you probably would like this. If you want to see how a mobile game works, you'd probably really like this. But is it a great game? No, not by any means would I say it is. It's more of a time waster game for me, But why was this notable? And why am I putting it in my top 20 best playthroughs of the year? All right, folks, it's this simple. People on the internet have made this game, this stupid mobile game, a reason to not like me for the longest time. They basically went behind the scenes of any content that I put out to try to find things that I'm involved with that have nothing to do with my public face. This is not a public account. This is not stuff that anyone needed to know about. But these people pried into my private life and tried to expose me for actually having been spending money behind the scenes. Ladies and gentlemen, anyone who makes any money on the internet has a right to spend it however they want, period. I'm going to say that again. Anyone on the internet who makes money has right to spend it however they want, period. No one ever had a right to criticize me for playing this game, but they did. They felt like, oh, well, if Phil makes money, he should be so responsible for it, and he should not be able to spend it on mobile games or anything else. That is wrong, okay? It doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter at all if you agree or disagree with me and my content or anything. It's full of baloney, okay? And it never actually was a big deal. However, the problem was, for the longest time, I was dishonest about it, all right? I will repeat that. For the longest time, I was dishonest about it. Instead of just immediately fessing up and saying, yeah, I play it and I spend money on it, I kept it kind of this stupid thing where I didn't want to talk about it, and I kept denying it for years and years. And that's why it blew up, okay? And so this year, when I finally played it publicly and I admitted that, yes, I had played it in the past and I had spent money on it, shockingly, people didn't run for the hills. People didn't say, oh, I can never trust you again, I hate you, and then they left. Instead, they said, we want to see this game, play it. And then when I played it, they sent me money to spend on it, live on a stream. And this happened many times. In fact, this was the first time in many years I made over $1,000 on a stream playing WWE Champions. In fact, I don't even think I've made that much money again in one night since. So, if anything, it sure proved that all the nonsense that these haters and obsessive trolls and weirdos on the internet, all their behavior towards me was completely unwarranted. They're unhinged. They're crazy. Nothing that they said mattered. Nobody ever cared to begin with. I was the one who was kind of fooling myself into thinking that people would care and being so afraid. And it was a big, big relief off of my back to finally be able to just relax and say, you know what? Now that this is out there, I can just be myself and stop having to worry about morons saying crap about me. Although they haven't stopped, they still act like this is a big deal, despite the fact that I'm still here, still making content, I'm still good, nobody cares. They think it's a big deal. It never was, but you know, that's why I'm happy I did this playthrough. Now, the funny part about it all is, we played this game on and off for about 2 months, right? I'd say it was probably like about 2 months worth of time. And after that, we literally got bored of it. All of us, me and you, collectively, we said, there's nothing here to really make content out of. It's a very boring game. There's no reason to continue. And so I stopped, and no one cares. So it never was a big deal. It never was a must play. It never was a must see. And now that it's out there, it's done. And nobody cares, right? So that's the great part, is that really this is like a cross off of my back that I don't have to bear anymore. And we can just relax and move forward positively with our lives and with my content. So that's why I'm so happy that I did it. And that's why I'm happy to have done it and done a good playthrough out of it. Because now people can actually go back and see what a mobile game is like. I actually used my gameplay of this game as a cautionary tale. Do not overspend. Here's what happens when you do mega pulls. Sometimes you win, a lot of the times you lose. This is a giant risk you're taking, and you're spending insane amounts of money doing it. You know, I think a lot of people saw that and were like, whoa, now we can see how bad this can be. Let's not do it. And I think people actually learned from my streams and videos, and that's a very good thing. So, thank you all for watching it, but it probably ain't ever coming back, just being honest, okay? So there you go, right off the bat, the #1 entry. Was that game good? No, but it was one of the best playthroughs. Do you see the difference? Not one of the top 20 best games of the year, but definitely one of the best playthroughs of the year, because in context, it was really meaningful and makes a lot of sense. I hope that made sense to you, okay? All right, continuing on. No, that was not the first time I ever made $1,000 on a stream. No, but it was the first. It was like, no lie, I think that one night playing WWE Champions was the most I've made in one stream in years. I mean, it was, like I said, it was over $1,000 in one night playing WWE Champions, which is actually ridiculous to think about, right? Okay. Continuing on, the number 19 entry. Whoa. The number 19 entry in the best playthroughs of 2024 Countdown is the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Game Classics Collection, or whatever the holy hell it's called. Okay, I actually still don't know the name of it today because they made such a convoluted name. It's really dumb that they did that. But anyway, so this collection, all right, here's the deal. I grew up playing the Versus series of fighting games in arcades and in tournaments. It actually was the first series of fighting games that I played competitively against people in a competitive environment like a tournament. Previous to this, for many, many years, since the inception of Street Fighter II in American arcades, I've been playing Street Fighter, but I never entered a tournament until Marvel vs. Capcom 1, okay? And the reason I was so happy that this collection came out this year was because it allowed me to finally show my passion and how good I was at these games and how much I loved them and my knowledge base and all of that. Now, here's the thing. This collection, at first, was very hype. People had always wanted a Versus collection of games to come out for a very long time. And people were like, they're leaving money on the table by not releasing this. And people had big online campaigns, free MVC2 and the like, right? So it took a long time for this collection to come out. And I was very happy to see it come out. Really, I was. I was very happy that it finally was released. However, it certainly is not without its issues. Like, when you think about it, this collection is not cross-platform, which severely limits it. It means that basically you're not going to get a lot of people playing it after just a few months. And sadly, that's what's happened, is after a few months of this game being out, no one's really playing it except for Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Like, right now, this is footage of Marvel vs. Capcom 1, and no one plays this game in it anymore. It's completely dead. Like, you can't find anyone playing this collection anymore for MVC 1. It's only 2. And that's bad. This collection has a ton of games in it, and you can't find anyone online to play it. That's really dumb. It should have been cross-platform. Also, the fact that literally there is no punishment for rage quitting. So anyone could play the game, be losing a match, pull the plug, keep all their points, not lose anything, and then just keep playing. Doesn't even make sense. Like, what? It's nonsensical. Basically, it's kind of a half-finished collection. If you're looking for a collection, that's a great way to keep these games historical so you can play them on single player with your friends. It's great. If you're actually looking for a great online experience, you're not going to get it, particularly now, because this collection came out in September, and now that we're in January of the next year, it's actually quite hard to find consistent good connections. I just played it last week, and playing Marvel vs. Capcom 2, the only game that gets comp left, you can't even really find good connections. Half the time I'm playing red or orange connections, and the game is lagging and skipping all over the place. So it's sad. Listen, why is it number 19 on the countdown and not higher? It's this simple. If this collection were great, if it were executed properly, and actually had good netcode, and actually had a much better, situation of having crossplay and everything, then it probably would have been like top 5. I'm not even kidding, because that's how much these games mean to me. But I kind of knew that Capcom was going to half-ass it, and they did. Capcom half-assed it again. So that's why I can only basically say, it's on there, but it's not, a high ranking. So MVC collection, it's good if you like these games and you want to have a way to play them. Just don't expect the best. Don't expect anything better than kind of a bare minimum, because that's really what the collection is. However, I am very happy that I got to play these games again and share them with you. Even if it was short-lived and I really can't play anything but MVC2 again, at least we had a little bit of time with the classics, right? Shout out to Flippy Flappy, who did a $2 super chat and says, great job, Darkside Phil. Thank you so much to Flippy Flappy for a $2 super chat here tonight. Let's get you up on the leaderboard there and then continue. Okay. All right. So continuing on, my friends. Now on to number 18. What is the number 18 best playthrough that I did in 2024? I'll tell you what it is, folks. It was, anyone recognize it? Probably not yet. All right, I'll give you a hint. I'll fast forward a bit so then you can actually tell what game it is. Ladies and gentlemen, this game is called Still Wakes the Deep. Many of you might not have actually watched me play it because it was one of those very, very low profile, kind of indie, Game Pass games. I played it earlier on in the year. I want to say it came out like March. I'm not sure if that's when it came out. But basically, it was a pretty interesting first-person style indie horror game. What was the premise? Well, you're on some kind of an offshore oil rig, okay? And while you're on this oil rig, all of a sudden, things start going haywire. Apparently, the drill has hit something and you don't know what. And then all of a sudden, all around the oil rig, these mutant alien-like tentacles are starting to writhe around the entire rig, destroying it. And anyone who comes into contact with them is getting turned into a monster, okay? So, over the course of this game, you're going through this oil rig trying to figure out what in the hell is going on. It's actually quite well written. The character acting is good. The voice acting is good. The graphics are good. In fact, I don't think there's really much of a negative at all. Now, keep in mind, it's a short game and it's a Game Pass game. It's only around 5 hours long. And the game keeps you guessing about what's going on and, what is the nature of this thing that you found? Is it an alien? Is it just something that was at the core of the earth? Is it a demon? Is everything really happening? Are you guys, hallucinating or whatever? I like games that have interesting stories like that, okay? So, it's number 18 on my list for a few reasons. Number one, I do feel like the game was short and could have been fleshed out into a much longer experience if it had the budget or the means. It didn't, okay? This game was not allowed to have the budget or the means to really be a big budget, scary game. For what it was, it's respectable, but it is kind of unfortunate. I do wish that the game were longer or better. And it is sad to me that it didn't end up being a bigger thing. Like, a lot of people didn't even really talk about it or know that it existed. That's number one. And number two, this is the biggest one for me. They keep doing this with modern horror games. The ending was not decisive. Even having played through the entirety of the game, I can't even explain to you exactly how it ended or what happened. It just left you kind of scratching your head in a little bit of confusion. And quite frankly, it was a cop-out. It feels to me like they didn't actually have a definitive ending for the game, so they want to leave it open to interpretation, so they make it kind of really unspecific, almost like, how can I say, anomalous, almost like, what happened? I don't know, roll credits. I don't like that. And they do that with horror movies today as well. They do it with horror games. If I'm going to invest my time with you, all right, I want an actual ending. If I'm going to give you 5 hours of my time, I want to see how the story ends. Not, it didn't end, or here's something that you have to figure out for yourself. That's nonsense. Give me an ending. Stop giving me, why does every game have to be like the ending of The Sopranos today? Where, there's no definitive, you figure out what happened. Did Tony live or die? What actually happened? I don't know, it faded to black. There's no ending. You didn't give us an ending. Now we have to figure it out for ourselves, right? I don't like that. And that's how the game ended. So just know, if you're going to play this game, right now it's probably really cheap. Because when it came out, I think it was 30 or 40 bucks, but it was on Game Pass, which is why I played it. Absolutely, with this game, I enjoyed the ride. I just didn't like the ending. And that's probably why it's so low on the list. If the ending had been definitive and decisive and good, I probably would have put it way higher on the list. But that's why it is what it is. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, let's just roll into the next one, shall we? Okay. Number 17 in the best playthroughs of 2024 is... That's right. You thought I forgot about this one, didn't you? Oh, no, I didn't. And you know what? I'm going to say this. Thank you to those who earlier on in the year convinced me to try Helldivers 2. When Helldivers 2 first came out early in the year, I kind of didn't get it. All right? I didn't really understand what the appeal was. I was told it's just an online team-based shooter. And I thought, unless I have like a team of dedicated friends who are teaming up with me to play it, I'm probably not going to like it. I'm going to miss the point and only get half the experience. So I decided against playing it at first. But then after a couple months of the game being out, it got increasingly more and more popular. And you guys kept asking me to play it. And finally I said, all right, you know what? Since you guys have not given up on this, I will give in and I will play. And I'll tell you, for about the 2 months that I played, I think it was around 2 months that I played it on and off, it was great. It was a great multiplayer addition to the streams and the content. The game having the unique alien classes was nice, the different worlds and the different styles of objectives. If you remember, even as I played it, they were adding in new weapons and new gameplay styles and things like that, which is really, really nice. The graphics, look, this is on PS4, or excuse me, on PS5. and it runs beautifully even on a console. You know, sometimes these games on console versus PC, one's inferior, but the game runs absolutely gorgeous on PS5. I almost always had a good connection. I think very rarely did I have a bad connection or anything like that. The game has interesting lore. It has great gameplay elements, and it's sound. You know, the gameplay loop is addictive and fun, and it makes it that you want to go back more and more. Why? Because you want to unlock the next new item, whether it's a piece of equipment, whether it's a new gun, whether it's a new airstrike that you can do. You always have something to work towards to unlock. So I really enjoyed it. And the truth is that I feel like if I had jumped in when it first came out, I probably would have liked it even more, but I already joined a couple months in. And then sadly, what happened was the content kind of dried up. I played it for about 2 months, and I got to the point where I kind of had like almost the optimal set. Like I had great weapons, good airstrikes and everything, the laser, orbital laser coming in. I felt like I didn't really need to unlock anything else. So when I started playing, I was like, oh, so now when I play, I'm not going to get to unlock anything else that's meaningful. Well, now it kind of feels like you've hit the wall, right? And unless I stayed there and I grinded endlessly, I wasn't even going to get anything significant. So I kind of fell out of love with it and didn't really play it again. And it's true, like since then, I haven't even had an inkling to go back. And quite frankly, neither did you, right? Like for the 2 months I played it, everyone loved it. And then it just seems like this game kind of over the course of 2024 just kind of fell out of favor. Like I barely hear anyone talk about Helldivers 2 anymore. It was white hot popular at one point, and now it's just kind of like I'm sure it's there and I'm sure it still has a player base, but it just doesn't seem to have that mainstream appeal like it did earlier on in the year. And I think this is what happens, especially this game came out of left field and no one was really expecting it to be good. And then the fact that it got good and, you know, they were scrambling to try to make content for it to keep up with the monstrous amount of demand that they were now faced with. I actually feel like they did do a good job. But ultimately, you know, it just kind of runs out of stuff to do. Now, what's funny is I've just been talking to my viewers recently and people had told me they actually did add a third alien race. I was like, oh, well, that might be interesting. A third alien race, maybe there's a reason to go back. But you know what? No one asked me to go back. I think it's just a kind of game that like when you're in that bubble of people who like it, it's great. But once you're kind of out of that bubble, it's kind of like it doesn't exist anymore. So I spent my time with it. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. But sadly, I think that most people who played this went over to games like Marvel Rivals. And this game was kind of a blip on the radar that now you're not really going to see many people play again. Okay? All right. So far, so good. Hope that you guys are enjoying our countdown here. So, surprisingly enough, I'm not seeing anyone who is going crazy in the chat today. Last night was the opposite. For the disappointing playthroughs countdown, people were upset. Tonight, people are kind of like, that makes sense. That makes sense. So that's good. I'm glad that we're of a same mind tonight and no one's freaking out, signaling to burn down my house and stuff today. You know what I mean? Okay. I'm being told by Bone In Chicken is Work. What a great name. They're saying, it fell off a while ago. They forced PC players to log into a Sony account, and many people lost access to the game. Oh, yeah, we had talked about that, right? That in some countries, you couldn't even make a Sony account or something like that. And Retro Danny says, Still Wakes the Deep was very fun to watch. I wanted to play it. I can't wait till it's finally on PlayStation 5. Right, because it was PC and Xbox console exclusive. I think it will be on PS5 eventually. All righty. Let's continue, everybody. Let's continue. All right. Our number 16 best playthrough of 2024 is... Ooh. Did you expect this one? I think this is the first. Well, I take that back. This is the second item, but I don't think anyone expected me to put this one on here. All right. But I liked this game so much for the limited time that I played it. I had to put it on here. Okay. Hades 2 early access. And I have to say that because the reason that I didn't continue to play this game and finish it is because my audience gave me a lot of clapping back. They were like, listen, we want to see you play Hades 2, but we want to see you play Hades 2 when the game is out. And you're playing the game in early access and you're kind of spoiling the game because this isn't the finalized game. This is, early on what the game is going to be, but, it might change. It might actually be different. Let me tell you, for an early access game, this game sure felt like it was a finished game to me. Look at the graphics. Does that not look great. It's actually even better, I would say, than Hades 1. It had new combat abilities, new things that were added that are very different from the original game that made it feel like a fresh new game. When I played it, I really enjoyed getting further and further in. If you remember, I think I had beaten 3 of the worlds, didn't I? At least 2. I don't know if I ever beat the 3rd world, but I'm almost positive I beat 2 to 3 worlds, and I was really digging it. I was enjoying the game and having a great time. And the only reason that I stopped playing was at the behest of the audience saying, hey, tap the brakes. We don't want you to go through the entirety of this game before it's even fully out. When it's fully out, it may actually have more content, be balanced differently, have different weapons, and be played in a different style. And if you beat it now, you're kind of spoiled on that experience. So after having played this several streams, I want to say I played it like 9 to 12 hours, something like that. Eventually I said, all right, I'm going to listen to what people say, and I stopped playing it. Now, I absolutely will go back. I own the game. When this game is finished, I will start it from scratch. I guess we'll start over, and we'll play it, from the beginning, and we're going to do a playthrough of it, all right? So it's still one of my best playthroughs of the year. Even though it's unfinished, I still really, really enjoyed playing the game. So hopefully if you are interested in Hades, and you haven't seen this yet, you'll give it a look, but understand that it is an unfinished playthrough for good reason. People literally told me not to keep playing it and to play it at a future date, which I will do, okay? So Hades 2 was good stuff. In early access, thing is, I almost never play early access games, so maybe, I don't know, maybe that's for good reason. But great game overall. Can't wait for more. Okay. The number 15 best playthrough of 2024 is... yes. So, even though I feel that Stalker 2 is a wonky game, even though I feel that it definitely is bereft of polish, it has technical issues, it has polish and refinement issues, it has frustrating parts that feel way too difficult, I'm still over 20 hours into the game and enjoying it. Even today, as I was playing, there was one part that felt so unbalanced. Why am I being attacked by 100 dudes at once in an area? I don't get it. I just didn't understand it. But overall, I'm still enjoying my experience with the game. Okay, the story is intriguing, despite the fact that, again, it doesn't seem like it's been written by a studio that had a $1 zillion budget and could have a team of writers all hacking at it and making it make a lot more sense. You know what I mean? It is what it is. You got to play this game with a grain of salt, understanding that it's from a small dev team in the Ukraine that was in the middle of a war and couldn't really do what everyone else did. They had to basically make do the best that they could. And as you're seeing even here, I mean, look at that. Even just to get the door open, it was wonky. I had to hit it in a certain way. While another game, it would have just easily opened. And this one, it's like, everything's a little off, right? The gunplay is challenging, more challenging than most other FPS exploration RPGs. You have to constantly pop items to stay alive, like healing, bandage. I'm hungry, so eat food. Oh, no, I'm tired. Chug an energy drink. Oh, no, I got radiation. Use the radiation medicine. Oh, no, I'm low on health again. Pump this, pump this. A lot of the times you have to just keep pumping drugs into your body, okay? Doesn't necessarily feel like the smoothest formula or even, game engine. But it still works. And the game is lengthy, and it has a lot of content, and it's worth a look. Particularly if you like Fallout, or if you like Metro, or if you like a game that is just open world exploration in general. And also if you like more difficult games with a survival aspect, because this game has certain moments where they'll be like, oh no, there's a radiation storm coming. Drop everything you're doing and run to a point of safety. And you have to. If you don't, you will die instantly when that storm hits. So you have to have that survival element to it. You'll be in the middle of a firefight and all of a sudden you'll be like, oh, your stomach's grumbling. You must eat right now. And you have to take a giant sausage and go, right in the middle of a fight. I'm serious. You have to just eat right in the middle of a fight to stay alive. That's kind of the element of the game. It's kind of like, to me, it's kind of like, it has this this wonky charm to it. Like the fact that it is unpolished, the fact that it has bugs, the fact that it has these weird issues and spikes in difficulty and then no difficulty, and it's not really paced well, almost makes it feel like that's what it's all about. I think people who like Stalker, that's that's what it is going into it, right? Like you learn to expect it and you're okay with it. So don't listen to this guy who's probably complaining right now. Overall, this game is a good experience, all right? But there's definitely times of frustration. There's moments of anger and disappointment. But overall, it is a good game. That's why I'm still playing it over 20 hours in. I'm able to put it into my best playthroughs of the year, even though I haven't really beaten it yet. So, okay. Oh, no, Slayer. He goes, oh, so it's like real-life combat, where in terms of if you're doing prolonged combat, you're going to get hungry or tired. No, this game is ridiculous. There's times when you'll run into an enemy, and then instantly every single person within a mile radius knows where you are. There's times that people will shoot through walls, even though there's no line of sight to you, they're able to shoot you. It's ridiculous. Like I said, it's wonky. It's not polished. It's not AAA material. It still has charm. It's still a fun game to play when you get to the better parts, but there are parts that are just absolutely ridiculous. So, Jade, how are you? Good evening. Good to see you, Jade. Okay. Let's continue on, because we're about 5 entries in, and we're making good progress, right? We're making good progress here. Let's continue. Ladies and gentlemen, the number 14 best playthrough of the year is, drum roll. Oh, I actually do have a drum roll. Wait a second. Yes. That is right. You all asked me, despite the fact that this game did not come out in 2024, would I have it in my countdown of the best playthroughs of 2024? The answer is yes. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Baldur's Gate 3. Okay, now listen, I want to make something abundantly clear. I like this game. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't have played it for 140 hours. But unlike a lot of people, I didn't love this game. I think that the game had some shortcomings to it, notably the amount of investment that it required in order to actually be good at it and enjoy it. Also, the fact that the way that it plays is so starkly different from other RPGs that I'm used to, right? Most RPGs I'm used to are more turn-based, but the combat is kind of isolated to one part of a combat area, even its own screen. It's not these big maps with strategic rules about order and fighting this certain way and hitting the drop on this person and hitting this many turns or this many moves or this much this and that. It's a very complex game in that regard, right? It really is. And I went into it basically not equipped for that. Like, I didn't know what I was getting into. Now, when I started playing it, people wanted to see me continue. It was voted as Game of the Year last year. And so I said, all right, but, it really, really took me for a loop how long it was and how much of an investment I had to put into it to actually complete it. I don't know if I would ever do that again, quite frankly, invest that much time into one game like that, because 140 hours is an insane amount of time for one singular RPG. But for what it was, here's the thing. Since I've played it, I now can say I've played this style of RPG. I understand what it is. I get why everyone was in love with it. Maybe some of the things there I didn't care so much about, like the social relationships and the amazing amount of customization and all that stuff that a lot of people really got into, people who actually role play as the characters and stuff. And I certainly didn't get that deep into the game. But I still really, really liked it. But is it my game of the year? No. I'm not saying that this game is not likable. I'm not saying that the game sucks. I'm just saying that this kind of a game is only going to appeal to a certain kind of player when it comes to being like a game of the year contender. And I'm not that kind of player, right? Doesn't mean the game's bad. Doesn't mean that the game, that's not valid if someone else said it was game of the year. It certainly could. It could be a valid game of the year for anyone. I mean, just on the sheer amount of content that's in the game. I played 140 hours and I didn't even do everything, right? I mean, that's insanity. Why don't talk about value? Bang for your buck. This game has that in droves, like probably one of the best value investments you can ever make playing a video game because of the insane amount of content that's actually in the game, right? And hey, if you liked the lore of D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, this game is probably so good for you because, you've always wanted to see the best live action video game representation possible, and you've got it now. instead of just, tabletop gaming. So there you have it. I've included it. I hope people are satisfied, seriously, because some people were like, Phil will never include this in his list. He's biased. He didn't like the game. So untrue. It's so untrue. I did like the game. And I wanted to give it credit that it was a great game to play. It gave me the experience that I wanted, when it comes to knowing what this kind of style of RPG is about. It's just not necessarily my cup of tea because of its length and because of the complexity of the combat engine. I feel like if it was simplified and shorter, I probably would have liked it a lot more, but that's my personal preference. Okay? All right. That's right. Hiseo says, now you can forget that it ever was on any list and move on. That's right. Now I can forget that Baldur's Gate 3 ever existed, and we can move on nice and calmly. Very good. Very good. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, let's continue. The number 13 best playthrough of the year is... That's right. That's right. And a lot of you are going to be like, what? Yes. Folks, Marvel Rivals. Marvel Rivals, I feel, is a darn good game. Now, you might say, I don't understand why Marvel Rivals is on this list and why it's so high on the list. You're not even playing it anymore. All right? Allow me to explain. Number one, I like Marvel Comics characters. If you were to ask me who are my favorite comic book characters of all time, it's always Marvel. I like DC too, but Marvel was always the one that I liked the most and I actually read the most. So to see Marvel characters represented in a game like this is really cool. I like Overwatch. Yeah, I really liked Overwatch. If you actually go back to when Overwatch was first released, I played the early access beta, I played the final version, and I kept going back to the final version when new content and new characters were released. I played Overwatch for like years, right? Like a year and a half before finally I dropped it because basically people just didn't like it. They were like, it's kind of getting bored. It's the same thing. It's repetitive. It's stale. And I said, all right, if you guys are bored, then I'm not going to keep playing it. And that's when I dropped it. But I liked Overwatch, okay? I was sad when Overwatch over the years degraded itself. And then when Overwatch 2 came out, had the worst video game launch in video game history. The game was literally unplayable for over 3 days after launch. What a joke, right? Like, you had to sit there in server queues to even try to play a game. No one could consistently get in. It was an absolute embarrassment. So I hadn't played Overwatch in ages. And then when this game's beta came out in the summer and I played it, I was like, oh my God, I've got the itch back. The class-based hero shooter. Everyone has new abilities. Everyone has these crazy things going on. I really like this. So, I was able to jump in during the summer and play with a good variety of characters during the beta. And then I was again able to play it now when the final version came out in December. And I was really enjoying trying out all these new character builds. The thing is, I do have some criticisms of the game. Notably, it doesn't feel like the game is balanced. And what I mean by that is there are characters who are of the same class type, where one is absolutely, positively better than the other. For example, in the sniper class type, there's Black Widow and there's Hawkeye. Black Widow is incredibly hard to play with, but even if you play good with her, she's still not as good as Hawkeye, who basically is much easier to play with, can do more DPS, has better abilities. You would always want to play Hawkeye if you wanted to do the best for your team, as opposed to playing with Black Widow. So why does Black Widow exist? Don't know. There's definitely big flaws in the game design of the game. But overall, the game is free. The game is fun. The game is already getting content. Like, there's going to be a Season 1 expansion soon that adds the Fantastic Four. It seems to be the best of all worlds. It just seems to me like the only problem that people might have with the game is that it's Overwatch. And if that's your problem with the game, that's an incredibly valid problem to bring up because it is Overwatch. It literally is Overwatch. It looks like Overwatch. It plays like Overwatch. It sounds like Overwatch. The characters are just hybrids of the abilities of the characters from Overwatch. Some of the things are like copy-paste from Overwatch, like straight up. So as long as you're okay with that, I think you're really going to enjoy the game. Well, over 170,000 people are enjoying the game at any given time on Steam, and it is seeing some really large success right now. Good for them, okay? So this was also on my disappointing countdown. And the reason being, I like the game so much, I wanted to keep playing it. I wanted to keep trying new characters. I didn't even get a chance to choose who my mains were yet so that I could jump into ranked eventually and try to get good because people already got bored. And that's sadly the fact with a lot of these multiplayer games is even though they may work for a certain group of viewers, a certain group of content creators, I feel like my audience doesn't really like it that much. And therefore, when people stopped showing up, I had to stop playing it. All right. But more power to them. I think the game is great. If you haven't tried it yet, I recommend it. It is a very well-designed game, even if I'm walking off of ledges and killing myself while trying to snipe Wolverine. I really enjoyed the time that I did spend with it. I wish that I could spend more, but I got to play what people are going to come for. And they stopped showing up for this game, so I had to move on. Okay? All righty. Yes, Jade, I know you play a lot of that now. Haseo says, maybe go back to Marvel Rivals for a random stream once in a while to see how it comes. I mean, but here's the thing, like, that's what I was doing. I wasn't even, the thing is now, with my variety content creation, right, and the way that I play games, I don't constantly play the same game over and over, because I do feel that if I did that, there would be oversaturation and people would feel like they get burnt out. I was only playing Rivals 1 to 2 times a week. And still people wouldn't show up for it. They were complaining, it's not interesting, it's Overwatch. So there's not much I can really do about that. You know, I can't change the core aspect of how a game plays. What's up, Game Boy? How are you tonight? Okay. Let's wrap up the top 10, shall we? Because we're now coming on to 45 minutes in this video, and I would like to wrap up our top 10 playthrough, or excuse me, our top 20 playthroughs of the year before we get to the top 10, I should say. So, ladies and gentlemen, the number 12 best playthrough of 2024 is, that's right, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Why? Well, let me tell you why. Dramatically improved graphics, dramatically improved scans of the planet, an insanely wide variety of aircraft to fly around and control, new added game modes, the ability, as wonky and silly as it is, to land and walk around on foot. Okay? There's just a lot to like about the game, right? It's silly, but also it is an incredibly good sim. Now, I'm not playing it for the sim properties. I'm playing it to just fly around and relax and enjoy doing aerial tourism with all of you. So if that's what you're looking for, check out my playthrough of the game. But I felt that so far, the times that I've played Flight Sim have been some of the most relaxing, satisfying, interactive times that I've spent with you guys in many, many months. You know, like playing this game has allowed me to chat while I'm also enjoying different parts of the world that I get to learn about. And a lot of the times you guys have picked where I'm going and then told me about those areas while I was there, which is neat, which is fun, which is exciting. I really have enjoyed relaxing. But ultimately, I think the most funny part about the game is when you finally go down on, look at this, when you go down on foot and you are walking around these various communities, you know, that you land at, whether it's a theme park, whether it's just a street, a landmark. This is actually my backyard. That's what it looks like when you walk around in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. That is walking around on foot in the game. So obviously it's not exactly street accurate, but it's funny when you're walking around and it looks cool from the sky just to land and realize how wonky this game actually is when you're walking on foot. But if you're in the sky and you're flying around a landmark or a recognizable area and you're looking at a beautiful sunset and you're feeling the awesome control of the plane, and you even can do, like, I wonder how many loop-de-loops I can do, right? And you start doing freaking barrel rolls and loop-de-loops and stuff. It's just relaxing fun. It's just, there's something to it. There's something about aerial tourism and being able to hang out with an audience and just relax and have a good time that just resonates with me in the audience. It resonated 3-4 years ago when we played this on the Xbox One. It resonates now on PC. The game is great. I really like the improvements because now playing this at 4K, take a look at the level of detail that you get when you're flying over these areas. It's photorealistic. You're right. And here's the thing. Like Dunsfelter says, you didn't even try rescue missions yet. No, I did like nothing. The game has a photo mode. The game has a rescue mode. The game has all this content I haven't even touched upon yet, and I already really like the game for its base value of just flying around looking at stuff. So the game has so much content in it. It is definitely worth it. Understand, it's not action-packed. It's not full of challenging and anything like that. That's not the point of the game. It's still an incredibly valid game that I very much enjoy. If anything, I'm a little disappointed. The last couple of weeks, I haven't played it that much. You know, I've been so busy with things like special holiday events, like the Christmas event, this, year-end series, that it kind of has fallen by the wayside. But I'm looking forward to getting it back into the rotation regularly and being able to fly around the world again with you on a regular basis. All right. And this is it. This is it for the top 20, right? The number 11 the number 11 best playthrough of 2024 is Crow Country, a game that I bet many of you completely forgot about. A game that for me was a complete throwback to the past. A game that had tons of charm, that had a great, intriguing story, interesting gameplay elements, puzzles that were unique and challenging, and horror. Man, did it have horror. It basically was a combination of a lot of things. Maps that very, very much resembled Resident Evil or a classic survival horror game like that. A pixel art style that was definitely, resembled classic PlayStation 1 style games. A very creepy atmosphere, great soundtrack. And even though it looks retro, it plays modern. When enemies are coming at you, it's easy to aim and actually shoot and hit the enemy, rather than classic survival horror games where you had tank controls and you couldn't aim for anything and you're constantly missing. In this game, the combat was heavily improved and refined and made way more easy to make viable. So I actually had a really great time playing Crow Country for all of you guys. And if you missed out on this playthrough because you didn't hear about the game, you didn't know what it was, or you just took one look at my gameplay and you were like, oh, that looks terrible. The game looks so outdated. I wouldn't want to watch that game or play that game. Really, you should give it a look. You should give it a chance. It is that good of a game. It is worth your time. And especially, if you're a fan of classic Resident Evil, Silent Hill, that kind of survival horror, if you're just looking for a game that has a very creepy atmosphere and a very intriguing story, the ending is mind-blowing. Let me just put it that way. The ending of the game is absolutely like, what just happened? Crazy levels, all right? So I definitely recommend it, although I will say this, you might want a guide for it because there are some really cryptic things, secrets and puzzles that are pretty tough to figure out if you don't have any kind of help. So I do recommend that perhaps you keep some help nearby, or else you may find yourself very, very confused a lot of the time. But for the most part, it is an absolutely great game that I hope you'll enjoy. All right. One more. Let's squeeze one more into this part because we're only about 50 minutes in. Let's squeeze in number 10. Ladies and gentlemen, the number 10 best playthrough that I did in 2024 is Night Springs DLC for Alan Wake 2. Okay? Let me tell you something. This is the polar opposite of my feelings about the second DLC that they made called The Lake House. If you loved Alan Wake 2, and after you beat it, you were left with lingering questions, such as, what actually happened with Alan when he was getting contacted, or supposedly people in town were being contacted by him? Was that real or not? What's the tie of Alan Wake 2 to the game Control? Who the heck actually is Mr. Door, the character that kept showing up over the course of Alan Wake 2? Is there any explanation for who he is, how he has the powers he has? And whatever happened to the sheriff character who Alan Wake kept running into during the course of the game, who seemed to keep disappearing and getting caught in various different places? Well, this game, or I should say this DLC, answers all of those questions for you. It actually is, in my opinion, one of the best written, well-executed, downloadable content pieces I've ever played in any video game ever. For as short as it is, it's only a little over 3 hours long. It is incredibly, incredibly satisfying. It is everything that you've ever wanted. And as you can see, it's ingenious. It's got different gameplay styles to it. It's not just, oh, you're playing Alan Wake 2 again. It goes through all different kinds of things in it that lets you play different kinds of games and stuff. It's really well done. It actually, in some cases, almost breaks the fourth wall, okay? In fact, it's so good, it disappoints when you play the next DLC because the next DLC is nowhere near as good. And that's sad. Like, I feel like they should have saved the best for last, but instead they released Night Springs first. And because of that, it's actually a disappointment because you were hoping there would be even more of a buildup in their second DLC. But instead, their second DLC felt completely extra and superfluous and not interesting compared to the first. So if you have Alan Wake 2 and you've been on the fence about playing the DLCs, sadly, you can't buy them individually. You have to buy the expansion pass, and it includes both. But I might even go as far to say, just play Night Springs. You're going to enjoy the plots. You're going to get answers. You're going to enjoy the expanded world lore. But you might just want to skip the Lake House because the Lake House is pretty underwhelming and crappy. But this, one of the best pieces of content I played all year. I strongly recommend you play it, or you check out my playthrough of it if you're a fan of Alan Wake 2. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that was 20 through 10. When we come back, we're going to have the finale, 9 through 1, the best playthroughs of the year. I thank you all for hanging out with me here tonight. I will see you for the second half and the conclusion shortly.